In 1952, a foundry worker's son in Wheeling, West Virginia, shook the hand of a man 40 years his senior and held his eye for 3 full seconds. He was 11. The man owned the mill where his father poured iron for $1 an hour. By the end of that handshake, the boy had a summer job his own father had never been offered. He had no resume. He had no connection. He had a lesson his father pressed into him before he turned 7. A man tells you everything you need to know in the first 10 seconds, and you tell him everything in return. Most of what that boy knew that morning died with the men who taught it. They moved through the world differently, not with seminars or scripts or self-help books, but with a code carved into them by fathers who knew exactly what kind of man they were trying to build. That code won jobs, kept marriages, and made strangers into allies before a word of business was spoken. It was not charm, it was a craft, passed down at kitchen tables and on factory floors, so deeply embedded that the men who lived it never thought of themselves as disciplined. They thought they were being raised right. Then 1970 arrived, and we decided being raised right was the same as being repressed. We threw the whole code away, not because it stopped working, because we stopped wanting to look like the kind of men who needed to try. Number 18 on this list took less than 4 seconds, cost a man nothing, and told every stranger in the room exactly how he had been raised before he said a single word. Number 12 contradicts every piece of modern advice about speaking your mind and standing up for yourself. And number 3, the lesson fathers enforced more fiercely than any other, the one a man carried into every room for the rest of his life, is now taught to corporate executives in a weekend retreat that costs $4,000 a seat. The old way cost a father 1 sentence and a son a lifetime of practice. These 25 lessons were not about being smooth. They were about being trusted. The difference between a man who walked into a room and was forgotten and one who walked out owed a favor by everyone he met. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 lost father-son lessons working-class American men swore by before 1965. Number 25, grip the hand, hold the eye. The handshake came with a rule, and the rule was the eyes. You took the man's hand firmly, not to crush it, to mean it, and you held his gaze while you did. A tool and die maker in Hamtramck made his son practice every morning before school in 1950. Limp grip again. Eyes down again. For a boy on his first day of work, that handshake was a letter of reference written in 4 seconds. It told a stranger he had been raised by someone. The hand spoke first. The man only confirmed it. Number 24, carry your own weight first. You did not ask another man for help until you had spent your own back. A bricklayer in Camden told his son in 1955, "A man who reaches for help first will reach for it always." The boy hauled his own hod up 2 flights for a year before the foreman quietly took half the load. Help offered to a man who tried is a gift. Help handed to a man who never tried is a habit. Effort first was not pride. It was the price of being worth helping. Number 23, never owe a man at sundown. If you borrowed during the day, you settled before the day ended. $1, a tool, a ride home, squared by dark. A railroad brakeman in Altoona paid his debts the same evening for 30 years, starting back in 1948, and raised his sons to do the same. He said a debt that sleeps overnight wakes up bigger. A man who clears small debts fast is trusted with large ones. The size of the loan was never the test. The speed of the return always was. Number 22. The cap comes off at the door. The work cap stayed on all day and came off the second you crossed a threshold. A house, a church, a kitchen, an office. Off, into the hand, no announcement. A coal hauler in Pottsville corrected his son in 1952 with one look across a neighbor's porch, and the boy's hand was at the brim before his father finished the glance. It was a small surrender, repeated daily, that told every room, "I know whose house this is, and it is not mine." The cap was nothing. Taking it off was everything. Number 21. Pay the house before you pay yourself. When the wages came home, the rent and the table were settled first. What a man wanted came last, or not at all. A streetcar operator in Toledo laid his pay on the kitchen table every Friday in 1949 and divided it in front of his son, landlord, grocer, coal man, then the tin for emergencies, and then, if anything was left, the boy's nickel. The order never changed. A man's wants wait. His obligations do not. The boy who watched that table learned household honor before he earned a cent. Number 20. A man's tools are his honor. You cleaned your tools before you put them down. Oiled, wiped, returned to their place, ready for morning. A machinist in Bridgeport told his son in 1953 that a man's toolbox was the only autobiography that never lied. Rust meant carelessness. A missing wrench meant a careless mind. How a man treats the tools that feed him tells you how he will treat everything else. The tools were the test no one announced. Number 19. Let the other man finish. When a man was speaking, you did not step on his words. You waited until he was done, fully done, before you opened your mouth. A pipe fitter in Youngstown enforced it at his own table in 1955, raising one finger when a son interrupted, lowering it only when the speaker had finished. The man who waits hears twice as much as the man who jumps in. The one who let others finish was the one strangers trusted first. Patience was not weakness. It was the loudest respect a quiet man could pay. Number 18. Stand. When they enter, when a woman, an elder, or a man you owed respect came into the room, you stood. No one called for it. Your legs moved before your mind decided. A foundry foreman in Gary, Indiana, drilled it into 3 sons through the 1950s until standing was a reflex they could not have suppressed if they tried. It cost 2 seconds and a little comfort. It told the person who entered that their arrival changed the room. To stay seated was to say it had not. Rising was a sentence spoken with the body. Number 17. Eat what the table gives you. Whatever was set before you, you ate, and you thanked the hands that made it. You did not name what you disliked. A miner's son in Scranton pushed away a plate of beans in 1951 and went to bed without supper. Not as punishment, his father said, but as a lesson in gratitude a full stomach could never teach. The boy never refused a meal again. A man who complains about food given freely will complain about everything. The fathers fed gratitude one plate at a time. Here is what nobody says out loud. A working man before 1965 was taught that respect was something he gave first and earned second. The cap, the handshake, the standing, the waiting. He spent it freely on every stranger, expecting nothing back. Then we decided respect should be earned before it was given. We taught a generation of boys to withhold it until the other man proved he deserved it. What we built was not dignity, it was a standoff. 2 men, each waiting for the other to go first, each leaving the room owing nothing and owed nothing. The old way risked a little dignity on every stranger and was repaid 100-fold. We called that risk foolish. We kept our caps on, and we wonder now why a room full of people can feel like a room full of locked doors. Number 16, walk your guest to the door. You did not say goodbye from your chair. You rose, you walked the man to the door, and you stood there until he was gone. A cabinet maker in Grand Rapids did this for every visitor in 1948, beggar or banker, and his son did it after him. He said the leaving was the part a man remembered because it was the part you did not have to do. The welcome could be politeness. The walk to the door was sincerity. Number 15, an honest day or no day at all. If a man paid you for a day, you gave him a day, every minute, whether he watched or not. A stonemason in Quincy told his son in 1948 that the worst thief was the one who stole hours because no one caught him and he caught himself every night. A man who works only when watched has already confessed what he is. The honest day was a promise kept to no audience but yourself. Number 14, save before you spend, always. The first coin of any wage went into the tin before a single coin went out. A dock worker in Baltimore started his son on a penny a week in 1950 and never let him spend the first one. By 18, the boy had bought his own work boots in cash and never owed a lender a day in his life. Spending first and saving the rest is a wish. Saving first is a discipline. The fathers built it early, in pennies, because pennies were all a habit needed. Number 13, defend your name, not your pride. There was a difference, and your father made sure you knew it. You let an insult to your pride pass. You did not let a lie about your name stand. A welder in Birmingham taught his son in 1954 to walk away from a taunt and plant his feet against a falsehood, and to know instantly which was which. Pride was vanity and could be swallowed. A name was a thing other men trusted, and a man who let it be muddied had robbed his own children. The fists were for the name. The pride could take care of itself. Number 12, speak last and mean it. When a decision was being argued, you held your tongue until the others had spent theirs. A Union steward in Flint taught his sons in 1953 that the man who speaks last has heard everything, and the man who speaks first has heard nothing. The boy who waited learned his opinion landed harder for the waiting. This contradicts everything we now tell young men about speaking up and being heard. But the fathers knew a louder truth. The room belongs not to the loudest voice, but to the one that arrives after the noise has worn itself out. Number 11, never raise your hand first. You were taught to take a great deal before you ever struck, and to strike clean, and only once if it came to that. A boxer turned millwright in Cleveland told his son in 1952 that the man who throws the first punch has already lost the argument about who was right. The boy carried that through a 40-year life among rough men, and he never threw the first punch. A man who can be pushed and not push back is not weak. His hands answer to his head, not his temper. Number 10, look a man in the eye when you speak of money. Wages, debts, prices, promises to pay, all of it was discussed eye to eye, never sideways. A grocer in Memphis taught his son in 1951 that the man who looks away when money is named is the man who will fail you when the bill comes due. The boy negotiated every deal of his life face to face, and his handshake closed sales that contracts could not. Money was where men learned the truth about each other. To hold a gaze through the hard part was to say, "Whatever I promise, I will keep." In 1958, a journeyman plumber in Cincinnati spent the first 10 minutes of every job on the customer's porch, talking about nothing: the weather, the team, the grandchildren. His apprentice once asked why he gave away 10 minutes of billable work. The plumber said the 10 minutes was the work. The pipe was just the part he charged for. 60 years later, American companies spend $14 billion a year on training programs to teach salesmen the rapport that man gave away for free on a stranger's porch. We did not become more efficient. We took the human part of every transaction, the part the fathers treated as sacred, and decided it was the part we could cut. The plumber's customers called him for 30 years. We call a number and pray a human answers. Number 9, admit it plainly when you are wrong. No excuse, no soft edges, no long story. You were wrong, you said so, you made it right. A carpenter in Richmond mismeasured a door frame in front of his son in 1956, set down his pencil, and told the homeowner simply, "That one's on me. I'll redo it tonight." The boy never forgot how small the words were or how much they bought. A man who can say 4 plain words of fault is trusted with things that a man who cannot will never be handed. The apology was short on purpose. Length is where excuses hide. Number 8, give up the comfortable seat. The warm chair, the dry spot, the place by the stove. You offered it before you were asked, and you meant the offer. A foundry man in Pittsburgh gave his seat on the streetcar to anyone older or wearier every day in 1954. His son watched it become automatic, a thing the man's body did without his mind. Comfort surrendered without being asked is the cleanest proof of character there is, because no one will ever know if you fail the test. The fathers passed it daily, where only their sons watched. Number 7, keep the family's trouble inside the family. What happened under your roof did not walk out the front door. Money short, a sickness, a quarrel, it stayed in the house. A foreman in Akron told his son in 1953 that a family which airs its trouble hands its enemies a map. The boy carried his people's hardships in silence and became the man every relative trusted with a secret. Discretion was not coldness. It was a wall around the people you loved, so the world saw the family standing, never bleeding. Number 6, a handshake closes it forever. When you shook on a thing, it was done. No paper, no second thoughts, no better offer entertained. A horse and feed dealer in Lexington sold a wagon on a handshake in 1947, got a written offer for more the next day, and turned it down without a flicker. His son asked why. He said the sheik had already spent the wagon. The only thing left to sell was his word, and that was not for sale. A man whose handshake holds needs no lawyer. A man whose handshake slips cannot buy back his name. In 2021, researchers at the University of Michigan followed a group of men into their 60s, trying to predict who would end up with close friends, a lasting marriage, and steady work. They expected income to be the divider. It was not. The strongest predictor was something they almost failed to measure: whether a man, as a boy, had been held to a fixed code by his father: keep your word, finish what you start, tell the truth when it costs you. The men raised under that code scored higher on trust and plain life satisfaction than any other group studied. The researchers called it a finding. The fathers would have called it Tuesday. Number 5, be early or do not bother coming. On time was late. You arrived before you were needed, every time, for everything. A railroad man in Sacramento lived by the timetable in 1950 and raised his son to treat every appointment like a departing train. It leaves whether you are on it or not. The boy was never late to a job, a wedding, or a funeral in his life. Earliness was not anxiety. It was a gift of respect handed to a man before you arrived, proof you had counted his time worth more than your own comfort. Number 4, carry your own mistake. When something went wrong on your account, you stepped forward before anyone could ask who did it. A shipyard riveter in Newport News dropped a tool that dented a panel in 1955 and named himself before the foreman finished turning around. His son saw a docked wage and a kept reputation in the same minute. A man who lets another take the blame has stolen something he can never give back. Stepping forward cost a day's pay. Silence would have cost something with no price. Number 3, provide first, always. Before your own rest, your own hunger, your own want, the people who depended on you were seen to. A mill hand in Lowell came home bone-tired in 1950 and checked the coal, the larder, and his children's shoes before he sat down once. His son said he never saw the man take the first or the best of anything. This was the lesson the fathers enforced above all others, the one a man carried into every room for the rest of his life. To provide before you please yourself was the whole definition of the word father. Number 2, your word in front of witnesses is iron. What you said you would do, with others listening, you did, though it cost you, though the world changed, though no one would have blamed you for less. A tannery worker in Milwaukee promised in front of his crew in 1949 to cover a sick man's shift for a month, then worked 60 days straight when the man stayed down. His son watched him keep a word that grew heavier every week. A promise is cheapest the moment it is made, and most expensive the moment it must be kept. The fathers paid the expensive part. Number 1, tell the truth. That is all of it. No method, no clever exception. You told the truth when it helped you, and you told it when it cost you, and a boy learned there was no third kind. A milkman in Terre Haute caught his son in a small lie in 1951, a broken cup, a quick story, and did not raise his voice. He only said, "I would rather you break every cup in this house than tell me one more thing that is not so." The boy remembered the cup his whole life. Every other lesson on this list was only this one wearing different work clothes. The handshake was the truth told with a hand. The kept promise was the truth told across time. Leave it in, and a man barely needs the other 24. None of these lessons required a classroom, a coach, or a single dollar. They required a father who lived them in front of a son too young to know he was being taught. The generation that came up before 1965 understood something we have spent 50 years unlearning. A man is not assembled from advice. He is built from repetition, the cap lifted 10,000 times, the hand gripped, and the eye held until both were reflex, the truth told when a lie would have been easier. We called these lessons rigid, old-fashioned, the kind of thing that produced men who could not express themselves. We replaced them with self-expression and called it freedom, and now 1 in 3 men over 50 cannot name a single close friend. The lessons were never lost to time. They were set down on purpose by sons who thought they had outgrown them. The father is still there in the doorway, waiting to teach. The only thing missing is a man willing to stand where he stood and mean it.